And as I said, blogging is really very close to my heart. I've been blogging for about, well, over 10 years, I suppose now. And my blog, which is on the slide bottom right there, is about modernizing workplace learning. And this is where I provide my opinions and thoughts about what's happening in the world of learning and development. And I keep it separate from my main website that Patrick referred to, which is, I think, is more factual. So here I provide things like directory of tools and the top 100 tools list, as he mentioned, as well as other resources. But today then I'm going to look at a number of things in terms of blogging, and what I want to do is summarize what blogging is all about. I'm then going to provide some examples of blogging in higher education for both students and staff, and then I'm going to talk about what I think are the best tools for use for blogging, and then I guess there'll be some time at the end for some Q&A for you to ask me some questions. So let's get started with what blogging is all about. And blogging has been around for quite a few years now, but I suppose it was probably the late 1990s that it really became popularized in its present form. But essentially it's just a website that allows a user to present his or her writings in some sort of chronological order. And so it's often used to produce some sort of personal online diary or journal. But nowadays, of course, blogging has a range of uses, and people use it for a number of different things. But I think for individuals, blogging is a very valuable personal activity because you can blog about any topic that interests you, and there's nothing stopping anyone from publishing their own blog. And in fact, I think it's changed the way we all think about where we get our news and information. So we don't just necessarily go to mainstream sources now, but we can get our information from anyone who has something to say. So why blog? Well, as Dory Clark put it in a Harvard Business Review article back in 2012, where she said, writing is still the clearest and most definitive medium for demonstrating expertise on the web. And she says that if you want to shape public opinion, you need to be the one creating the narrative. Well, of course, most people don't set out with that aim in mind to shape public opinion, for instance. Most people just blog about their passion, the things they're interested in or feel very strongly about. And in fact, these are the blogs that have become the most well-known, and in fact have often gone and done exactly that, have shaped public opinion. For instance, have you heard about Zoella? Zoe Suggs is a young woman who has made a name for herself as a blogger and a YouTuber, and she talks a lot about fashion and beauty. She actually comes from the town where I live here in Corsham in England, and both she and her brother have become very well known for their blogging and their YouTube activities, and in fact are now appearing on mainstream media, TV and so forth. And they've actually become modern day experts all through their blogging. And another example of a well-known blog is Live for Films. And this again is a blog just started by somebody with a passion for films. And his blog has now become very well known. So how can blogging help you? Well, it might bring you fame and fortune, but it's more likely to bring you some other rewards. So in a blog post itself that my colleague Harold Jarkey wrote, he wrote about how blogging has changed his life for the better. There's a lot of text on that post there, but let me read some of it for you. Starting at number 1, he says he lives in Sackville near Brunswick, Canada, and even his time zone is unknown to most people. And without his blog, no one would ever have heard of him. And that spring, which was around 2012, he had 4 speaking engagements, and he reckoned that without his blog, he was sure that those organisations wouldn't have invited him to speak. His blog is also part of his professional development and essential to the way he keeps track of what's happening in the world and how he makes sense of things, and it keeps him connected. And he said he initially met his business partners at the Internet Time Alliance. That's me, of course, and my colleague, through his blog, and that was a good thing. And his blog has allowed him to connect to people all over the world, and it's had, back in 2012, visitors from 168 countries, and meant that he can travel to new cities and often meet somebody there who he knows. And in addition, he says his blog has given him a little bit of credibility with a much younger digital generation. And actually, if you go out and Google how blogging changed my life, you'll see many other reasons how it has done so too. And anyone can blog, as I said, about anything they like. So, looking at blogging in higher education, why would you blog as a student? Well, one thing you might want to do is just talk about student life, what it means to you and your whole experience of being at university. And some universities actually encourage their students to do that. Harvard College, for instance, has its own blogging platform, and it highlights examples of bloggers who write visibly about life at Harvard. And you can see here a couple of examples that I've highlighted for you. Recent examples of 2 students who are just talking about their life at Harvard and in Cambridge in the US, and in the bottom one about what homework is like at the college. So just generally talking about life at Harvard. And of course, for many instances, it's actually a promotional activity for the university itself. So these students have chosen to do this as part of an activity for their college, but many other students just do their own thing. They use their own tools and they provide their own take on student life. So Keely, for instance, is a student at Anglia Ruskin University, and she writes a university student blog called Room 334 about the sort of nitty-gritties of being a student. And George, who studies in University of Lincoln, provides lots of student advice in his blog, which is just George J, which he says is my experiences, hints and tips and life through university. So a blog you might set up for your experiences at university. Is how you set that up is completely up to you, and what course you say is completely up to you. It's your blog, and it might be a personal blog that's just private for you, a way for you just keep record of your journal record really of what you're doing and what you're thinking, or it might be something you make public for others to see, like these 2 examples I've shown you here. So you might use it for your interests or your activities, but of course it could be a good way to show off your skills, and particularly your writing skills. So especially if you're on a journalism course, it's a great way of getting some hands-on practice and doing exactly what you want to do professionally. Right. But another good reason to blog as a student is to use it as a place to reflect on what you've been learning, to think out loud, that's to express your thoughts out loud, and to learn out loud, for instance, to talk about what you're learning. And reflection, as I'm sure you're all very aware, is a key to learning. For John Dewey said, we don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. So a good use of blogging for a student, therefore, is to create some sort of learning log, or learning blog even. And here how is Hull University defines a learning log. A learning log is a journal which evidences your own learning and skills development. It's not just a diary or record of what you've done, but a record of what you've learnt, tried, and critically reflected upon. And blogs, of course, are absolutely ideal for use as learning logs because of their inherent ability to record activity in a chronological format. Everything is automatically time-stamped, date and time. Now, when it comes to keeping a learning log or learning blog, there's a lot of actual good advice around about how to do it. But one source that I generally point to is one by Andrew Gibbons. He is from the UK, and he has been keeping a learning log for over 25 years. So he has loads of advice and guidance on how you write a learning log. And he's produced a nice little Word document which you can download called 50 Tips for Keeping a Learning Log. And although when he started, was keeping his learning log using word processing software, his suggestions are still very suitable for blogging. And he recommends that in a post, which is a reflective post on learning, that should consist of, say, something like 5 areas, 5 sections. The first one, identifying a significant experience you've had in learning, where you briefly describe what you've learnt, the reading you did, the assignment you wrote, the discussion you had, the seminar you attended, and then what happened in it, and where you write down what were the most important aspects of that experience, the method you used to approach the assignment, or the feelings of how the seminar went, and so forth. And then a conclusion, you might comment on, for example, what you did well, what you were least comfortable with, what you would like to do differently next time. And then in your action, you write about what you'd need to do to complete this learning experience, and finally when you're going to put that action into practice. Now, of course, these are only suggestions. You're quite free to reflect on your learning in whatever way you like and come up with your own questions to answer, and in fact that's often the best way. But sometimes people like to have a little help in thinking about their learning experience and ask themselves some questions that people have already suggested. So that's the reason why I'm giving these to you here, but of course, as I say, it's up to you how you do it. The main part of Andrew's document with his 50 tips for keeping a learning log are really the tips themselves, of course. And I'm not going to go through them all, but I'm just going to give you the first 2, which I think are quite useful. The first one is to keep entries as brief at least as brief as possible. Otherwise, you'll hold yourself up. And I think that's really important. It's about just getting started. It doesn't matter how beautifully well they've written or how perfect they are, and articulate they are, and so forth. It's just about getting going. So it's just about getting started and getting something down there. And then try to focus on significant things that are really making a genuine contribution to your development. So don't overthink things and, try to find learning in everything you've had. Try to home in some of the major experiences you've had. But as I say, don't feel too constrained by this approach. Your learning log, it's your learning log, so you can decide whatever you want to put in it. There might just be a private log, as I said earlier. You might just want to keep it to yourself. But there are benefits in writing a public learning log to reflect on your learning. And this can also be quite useful in interviews, as some interviewers may ask you about your professional development. And this is a really good way to show evidence of how important you consider it to be. The fact you've taken time to sit down and reflect on your learning. And in fact, it's for this very reason that many people have actually extended their blogs into a professional learning portfolio. And Wikipedia defines an e-portfolio as an electronic portfolio, as known as a e-portfolio or digital portfolio. It's a collection of electronic evidence assembled and managed by a user, usually on the web. Such electronic evidence may include inputted text, electronic files, images, multimedia, blog entries, and hyperlinks. I'm just going to pause there for a minute because I think the sound may have gone. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, Jonathan.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. I heard a clicking noise, so I thought the sound had gone okay. I'll go back to what I was doing now then. So ePortfolios then, so electronic evidence, they're both demonstrations of the usabilities of platforms for self-expression. And if they are online, they can be maintained dynamically over time. So I said that's Wikipedia's definition of a professional learning portfolio. But the important difference between, say, a learning log and a portfolio is that it doesn't just document your learning, but it also records your goals and your achievements. And once again, with the rich functionality of today's blogging tools, it's easy to extend a blog into a portfolio. So whereas blogging is about the chronological postings, a portfolio also contains some static information about your achievements. So in this example, for instance, you can see how Jenny has extended her learning log, which are her ongoing posts that she writes about learning and her reflections on learning, and now includes pages that provide information or showcase herself and her achievements, profile information, so something about her CV or resume, and her achievements, which might be things like scans of certificates, digital badges, endorsements, and testimonials. And all these digital assets can easily be uploaded and maintained in the blog's media store. And notice two other features of the portfolio as well. Firstly, the social networks, links to her social networks, and this offers an opportunity for people to connect to her in other ways, not just through her blog, but through Twitter and Google Plus and so forth. And also this feed, this RSS feed. This is important because if anyone wants to subscribe to her blog, they can read that in an aggregator, let's say, which means that her posts, Jenny's posts, come to them directly. They don't have to go out and look to see what she's written again. So learning portfolios are becoming quite popular in the professions. And for example, here's just one I found, or I refer to. It's Megan Carnegie's professional teaching portfolio, and you can see the showcase items that she has used about her teaching philosophy and so forth. And a point to remember in terms of learning portfolios is that whilst education and some professional bodies might encourage you to set one up, this is really something you should think about doing for yourself, whatever. As you really need to take charge of your own professional learning and make it a priority in your career ahead. And also, of course, needs to be something portable, something that you can take from job to job. So it's not an organizational tool, it's something that you own. Okay, so I talked a little bit about blogging as a student. I want to talk a little bit about blogging as a lecturer. I'm guessing there might be some lecturers in the room. I don't know, but what I'd like to say is a few words about how you might blog as a lecturer. And again, quite clearly, it's a very easy and clever medium to talk about your expertise or passion. And here's one example, Steve Wheeler, who you might have heard of. He's an associate professor of learning technologies in the Plymouth Institute of Education at Plymouth University. And he is a prolific blogger, pretty much writes a post every day. And on account of that, he's frequently asked to speak at educational technology conferences all around the world. So he's a really good example of a lecturer who's made his name outside his own institution, primarily through his blog. And of course, another way for blogging as a lecturer is to set up what might be termed a teacher blog, and to use that to reflect on your own teaching practice, just like a student might reflect on their own learning. And of course, there are lots of examples of teacher blogs on the web, and here's just one to have a look at. It's called Madame's Musings, and here Madame Shepherd, or probably Mrs. Shepherd, talks talks about proficiency-based foreign language instruction. Now, if you look at her blog, it looks really simple, doesn't it? And it is. And I think that's really important to point out as well. It doesn't have to look flashy like the one I showed you up front, Zoella's, for instance. It's just got to do the job for you. If it's something for you, it can look exactly how you please, and probably the simplest and the easiest to maintain, the better. So don't think you have to create something or singing or dancing. It really isn't important. It's what you write and how valuable it is for you. That's the key thing here. But one very specific use of blog in education I want to talk about is the course blog. And this is essentially a blog that hosts a series of chronological or time-stamped lessons on a subject, on a particular topic. And it also supports user comments, which provide opportunities for discussion and participation amongst students. So let's take a look at an example of that. So this is a blog for a course that ran from May to October 2012, called 23 Things for Professional Development. And the lessons were posted on a weekly basis, and the post you see in the middle here is the first introductory post that was issued on 1st of May, and it set out the plan or the schedule for the weeks. And now, of course, now that the course is finished, it contains links to those lessons, which are themselves blog posts. And you can see on the left the list of the contributors, which essentially were the students who participated on the course. And on the right-hand side, there's more information about the course blog, the course itself, and different ways to subscribe to it through these RSS features, where you might have it read in an aggregator, or if you want to follow it by email. So creating a course blog gives you quite a lot of versatility in terms of delivering a course in a perhaps more social way. So I'm often asked for sort of tips on creating course blogs like this. So I think here are my sort of top tips in how to do this. I think it's important that you really need to plan the course in advance. It may well be around one that you already run, but it might be something quite separate. Decide the number of lessons and the frequency of posting. So that's 12 lessons posted weekly. Remember too that the posts don't just have to be text, as you can see here. You can have the opportunity to embed other resources like YouTube videos, SlideShare presentations, and so forth, which means you can create media-rich lessons very easily. And the lessons should ideally include questions so that you can stimulate some discussion and interactivity between the students. And although the lessons will appear regularly over time, they can actually all be written in advance and scheduled to appear automatically on the blog on a specified date and a specified time. And I really think that is a really great way of being able to automate a lot of work up front without having to worry about having to write and post a blog on a particular day. And for that reason, there are quite a few teachers who like this blogging approach to creating a course. But of course, this was an open blog, as you can see, although people had to be registered to contribute. But if you wanted to make it only accessible to your own internal students, then that's possible too. You can protect a blog, the access to the blog in a number of ways, provided, of course, you have the right blogging tool. So let's move on now to consider what blogging tools you might think about. And as has been mentioned a couple of times now, I've been running this top 100 tools for learning survey for probably just 10 years this year. And in that, I ask learning professionals from around the world to share their top 10 tools. And from that, I generate the top 100 tools. And, over the last 9 years, there have been a few blogging tools on the list. So I just wanted to say a little bit about each of those. And the most popular blogging tool throughout the history of the survey is WordPress. In 2015, it came in at 6th place on the list, and the lowest it's ever been in the last 9 years is 8th place. So it really has been consistently an important tool for learning. And in fact, WordPress is used by individuals and organizations alike, not just for blogging, but also to create very sophisticated websites. So it's very functional. It can do a lot simply and a lot in a very sophisticated way. But what's really good about it, of course, is it's free. So you can use it on the hosted site at wordpress.com, or you can download it to your own server if you have one from wordpress.org. So it's available as open source software then. So WordPress really is the #1 tool, and people, if you look at a lot of websites around the web, you'll see that many of them are powered by WordPress. EduBlogs is actually an educational service which uses WordPress powered blogs to offer a service for teachers in education, from primary schools through to university students, to set up a free WordPress blog. And the good thing about EduBlogs is that not only do they just provide the environment where it allows you to host your own blog, they provide a lot of support for those who work in education as well. So it's quite a useful place to go, even if you're not going to set your blog up there, because there's a lot of really good stuff about blogging in education. And you can find them at edublogs.org. Now, another free blogging tool is Blogger, and this is owned by Google now. And for many, it's a quick and easy way to set up and maintain a blog, especially if you already have a Google account. In 2015, it came in at 18th on the top 100 list, and actually that's been its lowest position since 2007, when it came in at 9th, so it's dropped down a bit. But really, these two, WordPress and Blogger, are the leading blogging tools. There is another one that's been on the list called Tumblr, which is owned by Yahoo, and that's easy to use, quick to get started. But in fact, it's fallen off the list this year, interestingly enough. Now, I've tried all these types of blogs, one way or another, and my preference goes to WordPress. And that's what I use to host my blog and all my websites, in fact. So what I thought I'd do now is give you a look at what it looks like behind the scenes of my WordPress blog. So there's another screenshot of what it looks like. And I'm going to show you what the sort of back end looks like. Now, before I do this, I should point out that it's really, really easy to get going and post very quickly, just in the default settings. You can install it, set up, and get going straight away. But by customizing it, you can really make it work for your own needs and interests. So firstly, when you go into WordPress, you see the dashboard. And the dashboard is where you can get an overview of what's happening in terms of statistics and so forth. And you can customize pretty much what you see. Now, on that slide there, you can see the way I've customized my dashboard. So what I get to look at is my popular posts overall, since I've set up, and my daily posts, and the popularity of my daily posts, and that's really good, so I can get to see how many people have been looking at what, and get a feel for what's really popular and trending, if you like, on my own blog. And I've also see the recent, you can also see the recent activity. So things I've published as well as comments. And you notice here, there's a comment pending for me to approve or not. And that's sitting there because I've set my blog up to moderate comments on posts. In other words, comments don't appear automatically on as a comment on a post until I approve them. And I think this is really important nowadays, as unfortunately there are a lot of spam bots that just go around posting all kinds of irrelevant and frankly quite unappealing stuff in comments. So you really want to make sure they don't end up clogging up your blog posts. So I set it up such that every post has to be moderated by me, and I can quickly do that. I can either approve it, or I can spam it or trash it, or whatever I want to do. So on the left hand side now is a dashboard and all the things that I can do with my blog, and there's a lot there and I can't go through all of these now, but what I wanted to show you was the first thing was about themes and how you can set up a theme, and that happens in Appearance. And when you set up your blog, the default theme is applied to it, so you get it. It will look exactly how the theme that comes with WordPress at the time, and they usually have a new theme every year. But of course, you can change that to get the look and feel you want, the colors you want, the layout you want, and extra features like sliders, for instance, those pictures that slide across the screen, which are becoming really popular now. And there are lots of third-party free themes available. So, you don't have to put up with the one that you get. You can simply go to Add New Themes and select from the thousands of themes that are available and choose the one that you like. And then you can actually customize it even further, changing colors and so forth. And if you really want to, you can even buy themes to do extra tasks for you. Of course, the core of a blog is its posts, and you can easily get an overview of the post you've written. And this is where I can see all my posts, and you can assign categories and tags to them if you want to, and that means they're more easily searchable. And you can add new posts as well as edit old ones in the post editor. And the editor, the visual editor, there's a visual editor we're in now, is very similar to a word processing system, because it gives you all the sort of formatting features you'd normally find in word processing, whereas the text editor lets you add in HTML code. So if you want to embed a video or slideshow, you're going to need to go into the text editor to add in HTML code. But on the right hand side here in the publish, there's lots of things you can decide about your post. Whether it's to be draft or published, and you can easily set it into draft mode while you're working on it, so you haven't got published it immediately. It's visibility, so for instance, if it's public or password protected or private, and that of course is important if you want to secure stuff so that only certain people can read it. You can publish it immediately, or you can schedule it up, the time and date on which it is to be published. And so I tend to write quite a lot of posts and queue them up so they're ready to go on the days and times that I want. And finally, you can publicize it, so you can link it to your social channels so that it gets promoted for you. So I link mine to Twitter and LinkedIn and Google Plus and so forth, so that as soon as I've written the post, it automatically sends the message out to Twitter or any of these channels. And really promoting your post is as much as important as writing it as well. Now this editor is similar for pages, and as I said earlier, pages differ from posts in that they're static, that they're not sort of time-stamped, if you like, in the same way, and they don't appear sort of in chronological order, so you can organize those in whatever order you want. So anyway, this post you're seeing here, in this editor form, looks like this when it's published, and here it is, here set out exactly how I wanted it. But of course there's some other stuff on the right hand side, And all that stuff here appears because this is what I've set up in my sidebar using what are called widgets. So let's have a look at some widgets. I should first of all say that this is one widget here which is writing some text and an image, and I've got this search widget here, and then I've got a widget which is going to put out my recent posts, or a list of my recent posts. So when we look at widgets, here are the different sidebars, and you can see there's the text widget, there's the search widget, and there's the post widget, and I decided to show 6 posts and display the post date. So widgets are very customizable, and you've got a whole lot of available widgets to choose from. It comes by default with loads of things that you might want to have in your sidebars. If you can't find the one you want, then the great thing about WordPress is that there are a lot of plugins which provide additional functionality to your WordPress blog. Hundreds of thousands of them, produced mainly by third-party developers, have just given them away for free, and they can extend WordPress with extra features, and you can activate them, and it also tells you, for instance, when there's a newer version available, so you can update it. So I think I'm getting too far down in the weeds now, so I'm going to stop there. But as you can see, creating a post, you can make it as simple or as complicated as you like, but there are lots of opportunities to really turn it into something that suits your needs. So what do you do if you want to get started with blogging? Well, for me, it was a matter of just getting stuck in, trying things out. If I had problems, I looked them up, Google them and so forth. Try posting a few things. Nobody's likely to see them until you've published and promoted them, so it doesn't really matter what you do. And for me, that's the way I like to work, just to get stuck in and try things out. But if you really want to get some more structured help, then there are loads of resources. And here's one I just found from the EduBlog site. It's called a teacher challenge, but basically it's suitable for anybody who wants to get started but setting up their blogs and setting up pages and working with widgets and all the cool tools you can embed and so forth. Things that I've just mentioned in passing. So really, if you want to get stuck into understanding full functionality, it may be useful to try out some resource like this. Okay, so before I finish now, I just want to give you 5 blogging tips from me. Have a purpose. Don't just set one up because you think you should. Really think about why you're going to use it. There's lots of blogs out there that are not being used because people haven't really had to think about what they really wanted to do with it. Find a niche, something makes you stand out, something different, somewhere someone's going to see you as offering something special from all the rest of the blogs out there. Make it a habit to blog. Again, once you might start off with good intentions, but it's easy to forget about it. So perhaps put a note in your diary to do it once a week or something like that. It takes a while to build a habit. Promote it in your social channels as much as you can. If you're on Twitter and LinkedIn and the rest of it, get it out there. It's if you want to publish it for other people to read, make it public, then you need to promote it as well. People aren't going to come and find you. You've got to tell them about it. But most of all, importantly, is enjoy it, because at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, if you don't enjoy blogging, it's really not worth it. So that's the reason I kept it up for all these years, because it's something I really enjoy. Okay, so thanks very much for listening to that. I know we haven't got an awful lot of time left, but I know that there's probably a couple of questions to come through. So I'm going to turn my camera back on again now, and let's hope the bandwidth can support it. And over to you.
Hello, Jane. I'm back here again. And what you haven't seen is a view of the room, the engagement and the nodding of heads and the note-taking and the general enthusiasm for the message that you've given us today. So I'd say thank you very much, first of all, from the group here. And there's a lot of nodding, and maybe we might even give a clap just to show that we're still up here. I wonder if we have time for just a couple of questions, if anyone would like to ask anything. And just for the technical things here, if you ask the question, I'll repeat it so Jane can hear, if that's okay. Yeah.
Warwick. I don't know if Jane can hear me.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. Just yeah. Work with.
I suppose what we've seen is we tend to associate blogging with the humanities, reflective processes are common in social sciences and humanities, just to get insights into how blogs potentially how the sciences work.
Yeah, Jane, I'll just repeat that question for you. If you have any pointers to encourage blogging in science and engineering.
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's really about getting a niche, finding a really particular interest rather than trying to cover science and engineering. And the niche thing is really important. You need to establish yourself as sort of an expert or with a particular interest in an area. And I was looking around for things that might be of use, and one way that you might find, I hope you can see that now, is there's a top science teacher blogs. And I think it's good to go out there and see what other people are doing. These are teachers who are bringing the subject science to life for students. So have a look at what they're doing. There's some of them are sort of more like coursey type blogs, some of them are reflective blogs, some of them are ways of using science in the classroom. But if you're thinking about just being writing about a subject of interest, it's really about just finding something that you really appeals to you, and just researching it and writing about it on a daily basis. And I think that's really important. If you are going to write about a blog, then you might want inspiration. You might want some ideas about where to get stuff from. And for me, I get my inspiration from Twitter and LinkedIn, where I'm reading what other people are doing and tapping into news from blogs and so forth. So I'm getting stuff in from other sources and I'm thinking about it, and then I'm writing a blog post or something to comment on it or to add value to what I've heard in terms of my own thoughts and opinions. But as I said, you can't cover the whole subject area, so keep it small, try and tap in, get a daily input of new ideas so that you can then have got material to use yourself in providing blog posts, interesting blog posts.
Thank you, Jane. Are there any other questions from anybody? Yeah, Jane, there's a question around writing a personal blog, but then wanting to promote it on Twitter or social media, and if you have any tips around keeping that secure or keeping it maybe a bit private, let's say.
Well, if you want to write it private, there's a number of ways. You can make it totally private and nobody can see it at all. And so you can set the whole blog up to be private, so only you can see it. If you're going to promote it on, then you've got to expect people to come and find it. So you want to be talking about things you want people to see. So it really depends on what you want to do. Now, if you're going to you could write a public blog, but only want to write a private post now and again, and you can mix the two up. So it's really up to you. It's common sense, I think, really, on whether it's something you want to share more widely and how you promote it. And you don't have to promote it everything. You can. I showed you on WordPress how you can publicize those channels. You can turn that off for any particular post that you write. So I think it's about deciding, when you write a post, who do I want to see this? Is this something just for me? Is it something I'd like other people to see? Is it something I'd like other people to comment on? And then decide how well you want to promote it. And for me, most of my blogging is public, so I just automatically goes out from me saying I publish my blog posts and so forth. So but it doesn't have to be that way. I think you can set it up exactly how you want to. I hope that answered the question a bit.
Thanks, Jane. Can I just extend that by asking if there's any pitfalls that you have come across since you have started blogging, or maybe if you have any strategies or techniques to deal with trolls or unwanted comments or that kind of thing?
Well, yes, you could, as I pointed out, I moderate all comments. In the early days, I didn't do that, but for many reasons now, a lot of automatic spam bots go around spamming stuff, all kinds of things. So you have to do it really. Otherwise, there are certain plugins that you can use, which Akismet, for instance, that go through comments, spam, and can help you sort it out. But I still do it as a manual process, and I think really you've got to watch that, because your blog post can, you know, if you let anyone comment without moderating it, unfortunately, you can get some nasty stuff on there. In terms of trolling, I've never really had any problems, I had to say, touch wood, with that. You know, people disagree with you. Well, people do disagree with you. I've had written blog posts where people not like what I've said, but, you know, that's their opinions. They're not trolling me, but I fortunately haven't had any really serious cases. But I think by managing comments is the best way to keep on top of it yourself, and you feel that you're in some sort of control about what happens then as well.
Excellent. If there are no other questions, we'll... Eamon, you have a question?
Jane, you mentioned that as one of your 5 bits, promoting what how have you found, what have you found to be the most effective way of promoting your blog?
Jane, I'll just repeat that question. Eamon is interested to find out what the most effective ways you have found to promote your blogs.
Okay, well, my most effective way for me, probably because I have the most followers in those areas, has been Twitter. So I have quite a number of connections there, and my Facebook page, not my Facebook account, which is my private account I use for family and friends, but my Facebook professional page, and that just a post just goes on there and people can comment on it. But I'm not establishing a friendship. But that's because I have quite a lot of people on it. So for me, they're the two things. Oh, and LinkedIn as well, I should say. It goes into LinkedIn. And if you've got a number of connections there, it goes into their stream. So really the best place is where you have the most contacts and connections, really. So that, for me, it's Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. But for you, it might be something else. But I try and promote it wherever I can in my own channels. I don't go out and promote it on other people's channels. I find that's probably not that's not really the right thing to do. So in my own channels, I will promote it. So it really is about having other things as well as your blog, isn't it?
It is. Are there any other comments or questions? If not, Jane, and we'll just draw this webinar to a close. I'd like to thank you again on behalf of the Technology Enhanced Learning Unit here in the university as part of our Take One Step initiative. I think this has been an excellent experience for the people here, and hopefully for those that will view this again in the future. Thanks very much for your contribution and for your time today, and we look forward to being in touch again.
Thanks very much. It was a great time. Thank you.